I don't know, that's boring. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'm a bit tired. And my head just woken up like 7 minutes ago. Whenever there's a long loading screen, it just means I just woke up. But it's okay. Good morning, suds. Ahoy. Ahoy. I'm kind of thinking about making myself some toast, but because I didn't get to eat my jam yesterday, so I don't know if that would be okay. And maybe some, and then we could do a review together. It's nice before a story for me. Okay, nice before bed. That book, Harry Potter, is a big book and long story. It's okay. I can read it. Don't worry about it. It's okay. Go ahead. Okay. What type of bread do I want? Okay. Okay. I'll be back with jam and bread. Yeah. I'm going over to the kitchen. I'm making the bread. I'm making some toast. I'm grabbing some tea. Yeah. Did I do it? I don't want to move. It's so cold. Okay. Here. I'll be back with some toast. Maybe I'll start the toast and then I'll come back. Live jam review. Jam sesh. Okay, be right back. Oh wait, exit stage left. Okay. I'm back. Hello. With jam. Well, I had with jam and a bit of waffle, cause I didn't want to make toast, so I just heated up some leftovers. Maybe it'll be good. I don't know. I ran across the house, so we sprinted. We mad vibes. Good job. Hi backward chat. To be fair, Sumi reading story because there is good lullaby. Oh, I hope so. And then you wake up and we're playing Minecraft. You're like, what's going on? Okay, today's jam of the day is strawberry linden blossom. What's a linden blossom? Hold up. Linden blossom. Oh, it's like a type of tea. It's a fresh, sweet floral fragrance with a hint of citrus. It's like a flower. It's flower jam. Jam. Yeah, it's just strawberry and flowers. Okay, and I also made myself tea because I'm super quick like that. I asked for like a electric kettle for Christmas, so I hope I get it. So I can just keep it on my desk and have hot water always. I don't know, because I always have to run to the kitchen, and I have to use my coffee maker for hot water, but like I literally don't use it for coffee anymore. It's just my hot water maker. Okay, and I have a piece of leftover waffle. I'm gonna try to jam on. Speed, I know I'm so fast. It smells weird. It smells familiar, but just watch me. Just give me a minute to have this jam, please. It's called a thermos in my place. Maybe I'll make a thermos of hot water. In America, thermos is like a whole jug of like and it keeps things warm so you put in it, but it doesn't heat up. Ooh, I like it. I think I'll like this one. We'll see. I'm having it with a little bit of whatever it's called, butter and toast and waffles. I had to take a picture. Okay, I took a picture. Now I can eat it. This is a nice jam review. Usually I eat jams that like that's really good. It's like I don't know, it's like strawberry jam, but like fancy. I can't tell you what's fancy about it. I don't know. It smells good though. I've been keeping like half a teaspoon of all the jams I've tried so far in a little Tupperware. And it so I can mix them all up at the end of the month and see what flavor sticks out. But right now, it just kind of looks like a dead placenta in the frame. It's all sorts of like red and like fleshy colors. It's kind of gross. But yeah, eventually I'll mix it up. One thing about bad? I don't think so. It's like an airtight container. And it's only for a month. I've bought jam and not been able to finish it for like a year. So I hope it's okay. If it held jam tier, that would be fun. I'll find pictures and I'll like do a stream where I tier list them. That would be really fun. What tier? Yeah, I was standing there. I was like, make a decision. It was between the barley tea and the like pineapple tea, green tea, and I picked the barley tea just because I was like, what if the pineapple tea ruins the jam? And then I was like, all I taste is pineapple. So. Took me over an hour to finish Space Jam. Is it an hour-long film? I haven't seen the new one or the old one. I'm not a big Space Jam fan. I'm trying some jam. Don't ignore what the here. Oh gosh, properties. Change it to trying jam. Jam and tea. Break. There we go. Oh god, now it's out of bounds. Well, there we go. What's your favorite spells in Harry Potter? Okay, I don't know any spells in Harry Potter, but I know there's one that kills people, and I like that one. When the spaceship on the jam tier list, I'll not have to watch it. To be honest, I don't like cartoon humor, so probably pretty low. Radical Jabber, yeah, that's the one. I like that one. Prioritizing effectiveness. Well, I don't know what other others most do. Man, that's really good. I don't know if I just made a really good waffle or if it's actually really good, but maybe it's just the company I'm eating it with. Okay. Do you guys ever have those like whipped cream cakes like with fruit in them? Like, cause that's what it tastes like. It tastes like one of those like fresh cream cakes. Maybe I'll try other jams with waffles instead of bread. I usually don't eat a lot of bread, so I don't know. Maybe I'm tired of bread. Maybe that's why everyone's getting a low review. I am biased. I should have set a control. Where like every toast will be eaten with waffles. What's VOT? I saw you typing that yesterday too, and I was like, huh? Volume metric of taste. What? Very scientific. Imagine being a wizard in the modern world and when you get to use a block. That's so dumb. That reminds me of like the Indiana Jones scene where like he pulls out like a he pulled out a gun and they were like about to duel. I don't know. I don't know if I remember right. Crucio, the torture curse. You guys have been tortured now. Mwah. Uh-oh, is the waffle affecting your score? The integrity of your tier list is in danger. It truly is. Okay, here, let me taste some without the waffle. Oh. It just tastes like strawberry jam, but I like the texture better. I don't know how to put it. Linden blossom extra. Honestly, my favorite jam to eat normally is probably between apricot and strawberry jam, so this is really good. The best spell is the 9mm. That's not in the spirit of the magic realm. Get out of there. I'm gonna finish one more bite and put it away. Thank you for bearing with me while I eat some toast. Bear. What would I rate? I would rate it a 10 out of 10. It's really good. And there's some complexity to it that I can't describe, but it's really good. And I like how tart it is. And it's spread really nice. Sometimes the jam doesn't spread that well, or it comes out in one big lump. Joshberry Jam said it's a good score, so I believe, because his name is Jam. So, man, I wish you also ate the, I should have sent you one of those advent calendars. If next year, if we do this again, anyone whose name is Jam, I'll send an advent calendar your way. Yesterday, I had a really big day. I went to IKEA to do like decor shopping for, you know. And they have like an IKEA advent calendar, and it was like half price because, you know, it's already the 10th of it's already the 10th of the year, the month, so it's like, who's still buying advent calendars? But they were doing like a buy 4 get 1 free sale, and I was like, that's too much. It's too much chocolate for little me. So, but I still wanted one because like I like I don't know, their chocolates are always really good. They're not like they don't have an off taste like American chocolates usually do. So I was like, you know what, I'll try some. So I got one, and then like as I was pushing my cart to the checkout, this lady, she was like, she waved me down, and I thought I was in trouble because I always think I'm in trouble. And she was like, hey, did you know that if you buy 4 more, if you buy 3 more, you get 1 free? And there are like gift cards in the advent calendars, and there's like a $5 gift card in the advent calendar, and a voucher for like a free Swedish meatball entree. And so she was like, it practically pays for itself. And I felt bad for saying, oh no, that's too much chocolate for me. So I bought 4 more. So now I have 5 advent calendars, and it's already halfway through the month. Yeah, I might try to gift them to friends and family. Cause I don't think I can eat that much. I know this American milk chocolate generally tastes different from Australian milk chocolate where I was raised. It's because American milk chocolate uses like it used to use a process of like heating up the milk that gave it like a soury taste. And well, even though we don't do that anymore, people still prefer like the soury taste of like, I wouldn't say spoiled milk, but like if you ever eat a Hershey's bar and you're like, oh, why does this taste like vomit? That's why. But yeah, but they're pretty good so far, and I have a lot of them. I've only eaten the day one. But yeah, it's good. And if anyone ever stops me on the street and is like, hey, I need you to buy something, I work off a commission, I'd be like, oh yeah, of course, like no worries, bro. Like I got you. Is your family doing okay? I don't even need to be advertised to, because I used to confuse advent calendars with candid calendars. What's a candid calendar? Candid calendar. What is a candid calendar? The ones with like pictures of animals? Cause that's all I can find. Some people like sour yogurt. It's like, here, let me find it's the butyric acid found in milk, and it creates the sourness and tang, which, yeah, some people think it tastes like vomit because when you puke, your stomach's butyric acid also comes up. But yeah, there we go. I tried to make my own yogurt one time. It was still watery. I had to drain it out more, but I didn't have time. I would recommend it if you have the time to make your own yogurt. It's funny because you need some yogurt to make more yogurt, like, to get the initial, like, fermentation going. Is it all yogurt meant to be sour? Like, the cultures in it just adds to the sourness, I think. Unless you get, like, Yoplait. Okay, if you read the ingredients of Yoplait, it's just pudding. Like, here, let me find Yoplait ingredients. The ingredients are literally milk, sugar, cornstarch, gelatin, lime juice, whatever, and then the flavoring. Like, the milk plus sugar plus cornstarch is how you make pudding. So, like, the thickening agent isn't even, like, the cultures of the yogurt, you know? So, and, like, they don't even have, like, real strawberry. It's just, like, strawberry flavor. I don't know. It made me really sad, because I used to eat a lot of the... As a kid, like, you know, like, you'd always see on the shelf, like, ooh, fancy adult yogurt. But it's just pudding. I don't know. But yeah, I try to eat, like, Greek yogurt, you know? But, I don't know. I say, but I don't know a lot. I'm trying to stop, gosh. I'm trying to let my sentences run smoother, because I find myself, like, idling a thought a lot. My one brain cell is like on rapid fire. Trying to stop myself and let myself think before I speak. It's quite hard. Oh, wait, okay. We can start reading the book. I had enough tea time. I don't know how long the stream's going, so now I feel bad. I'll do this. Ba 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 ba. Why am I muted? Sorry. I must have accidentally clicked it. Sorry. I was gonna say I got the book from I'll probably try to check out the rest of the books from the library as we go along. If we did decide that this is good. I don't know, I've never read it. So I'm sorry. I was changing the sign back and I was control C and I think I control C to a bit too far. Yeah. Thank you for bearing with me. Harry Potter has never played a sport while flying on a broomstick. He never won a cloak of invisibility, befriended by a giant, or helped hatch a dragon. All Harry knows is a miserable life with the Dursleys, his horrible aunt and uncle, and their abominable son. Abominable? Dudley. Harry's room is a tiny closet at the foot of the stairs, and he hasn't had a birthday in 11 years. And all that is about to change when a mysterious letter arrives by an owl messenger. A letter with an invitation to a wonderful place he never dreamed existed. There he finds not only his friends, aerial sports, and magic around every corner, but a great destiny that's been waiting for him, if Harry can survive the encounter. Bun-da-bun. Control C when you... I was... Apparently... Okay, so that was a blurb. Nice. Isn't it crazy that she just wrote this book, like thinking it'd just be a book, and then it blew up? I don't know. It's crazy to me. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Chapter 1. The boy who lived. Oh, sorry if I wrinkle the pages a bit. I don't know. It adds to the ASMR. I don't know if it actually does. I don't know. My hands don't wrap around the book as good, so I have to keep shuffling them or else my pinky hurts. Okay. Have you watched the movie? I haven't. They were always so scary to me. I really try to stay away from any movies or shows with plot. Cause it scares me. I don't like feeling anxiety. Okay, chapter 1. The Boy Who Lived. Mr. and Mrs. Dursley of number 4 Private Drive were proud to say that they were perfectly normal. Thank you very much. They were the last people you'd expect to be involved in any strange or mysterious, because they just didn't hold with such nonsense. Mr. Dursley was the director of a firm called Grunnings, which made drills. Oh, if I pronounce stuff off, Please type it phonetically in chat so I can learn. I don't mean to. Okay. He was a very big, beefy man with hardly any neck, although he did have a very large mustache. Mrs. Dursley was a thin and blonde, and had nearly twice the usual amount of neck. Which came in very useful, as she spent so much of her time craning over garden fences, spying on the neighbors. The Dursleys had a small son called Dudley, and in their opinion, there was no finer boy anywhere. The Dursleys had everything they wanted, but they also had a secret. Gasp, a secret. And their greatest fear was that somebody would discover it. Da, da, da. I don't know what their secret is, but we'll discover it. She stole his neck. Pre was short E. Private. Okay, private. Gotcha. They didn't think that they could bear it if anyone found out about their Potters. Mrs. Potter and Mrs. Dursley's sister. But they hadn't met for several years. In fact, Mrs. Dursley pretended that she didn't even have a sister, because her sister and her good-for-nothing husband were as un-Dursleyish as possible. The Dursleys shuddered to think what the neighbors would say if the Potters arrived in the street. The Dursleys knew that the Potters had a small son too, but they had never seen him. The boy was another good reason for keeping the Potters away. They didn't want Dudley mixing with the child like that. When Mr. and Mrs. Dudley woke up on a dull gray Tuesday, our story starts. There was nothing about the cloudy sky outside to suggest that strange and mysterious things would soon be happening all over the country. Mr. Dursley hummed as he picked out his most boring tie for work, and Mrs. Dudley gossiped. Dursley, so many words. Ugh. Mr. Dudley hummed as he picked out his most boring tie for work, and Mrs. Dudley gossiped away happily as she wrestled a screaming Dudley into his high chair. None of them noticed a large, tawny owl fluttered past the window. At 8:30, Mr. Dursley picked up his briefcase, pecked Mrs. Dursley on the cheek, and tried to kiss Dudley goodbye, but missed, because Dudley was now having a tantrum and throwing a cereal at the wall. Little tyke, chortled Mr. Dursley as he left the house. He got into his car, backed out of number 4's drive. It was on the corner of the street that he noticed the first sign of something particular. A cat reading a map. For a second, Mr. Dursley didn't realize what he had seen. Then he jerked his head around to look again. There was a tabby cat sitting on the corner of Privet Drive, but there wasn't a map in sight. Huh? What? Okay, what could he have been thinking of? It must have been a trick of a light. Mr. Dursley blinked and stared at the cat. It stared back. As Mr. Dursley drove around the corner and up the road, he watched the cat in his mirror. It was now reading the sign that said Privet Drive. No, looking at the sign. Cats can't read maps or signs. What's going on? A magic cat. Mr. Dursley gave himself a little shake and put the cat out of his mind. As he drove towards town, he thought of nothing except a large order of drills he was hoping to get that day. But at the edge of town, drills were driven out of his mind by something else. As he sat in the usual morning traffic jam, he couldn't help but notice that there seemed to be a lot of strangely dressed people about. People in cloaks. Harry Potter's. No, I don't know. Just multiple. Mr. Dursley couldn't bear people who dressed in funny clothes. The getup you saw on young people. He supposed this was a stupid new fashion. He drummed his fingers on the steering wheel, and his eyes fell on a huddle of these weirdos standing close by. They were whispering excitedly together. Mr. Dursley was enraged to see that a couple of them weren't young at all. Why, that man had to be older than he was wearing an emerald green cloak. The nerve of him. And then it struck Mr. Dursley that this was probably some silly stunt. These people were obviously collecting for something. Yes, that would be it. The traffic moved on, and a few minutes later, Mr. Dursley arrived at the Grunnings parking lot, his mind back on track. Wait, isn't it very odd? Shouldn't the wizards hide that they're wizards? I presume the people in cloaks are wizards. So, like, shouldn't they hide the fact that they obviously stand out? I don't know, that's just me. But throughout a 10 series despite being named Potter, Harry does not create a single piece of clay pottery throughout the whole series. Spoilers! Man, I was really hoping he would. Yeah, they should. Explain in the next chapter. Okay. We'll push on. They didn't think they could bear it if anyone found out about the Potters. Wait. Oh, I didn't flip the page. Mr. Dursley always sat with his back to the window in his office on the 9th floor. If he hadn't, he might have found it harder to concentrate on drills that morning. He didn't see the owl swoop being passed in broad daylight, though people down in the street did. They pointed and they gazed open-mouthed as owl after owl sped overhead. Most of them had never seen an owl even at nighttime. Mr. Dursley, however, had a perfectly normal hour-free morning. He yelled at 5 different people. He made separate, important telephone calls and shouted a bit more. That sounds miserable. He was in a very good mood until lunchtime, when he thought he'd stretch his legs and walk across the road to buy himself a bun from the bakery. He'd forgotten all about the people in cloaks as he passed a group of them next to the baker's. He eyed them angrily as he passed. He didn't know why, but they made him uneasy. That's so mean. This bunch was whispering excitedly too, and he couldn't see a single collecting tin. It was on his way back past them, clutching a large donut in a bag, that he caught a few words of what they were saying. The Potters, that's right, that's what I heard. Yes, their son Harry. Mr. Dursley dropped dead. The end. That was a good book. Fear flooded him. He looked back at the whisperers as if he wanted to say something to them, but thought better of it. He dashed back across the road, hurried up to his office, snapped at his secretary to do not disturb him, seized his telephone, and had almost finished dialing his home number when he changed his mind. He put the receiver back down, stroked his mustache, thinking, no, he was just being stupid. Potters wasn't such an unusual name. He was sure there were lots of people called Potter who had a son called Harry. Come to think of it, he wasn't even sure if his nephew was called Harry. He'd never seen the boy. It might have been Harvey or Harold. There was no point in worrying Mrs. Dursley. She always got so upset at any mention of her sister. He didn't blame her if he'd had a sister like that. But all the same, those people in cloaks. He found it a lot harder to concentrate on drills that afternoon when he left the building at 5 o'clock. He was still so worried that he walked straight into someone outside the door. "Oh, sorry," he grunted, as the tiny old man stumbled and almost fell. It was a few seconds before Mr. Dursley realized that the man was wearing a violet cloak. He didn't seem at all upset at being almost knocked over to the ground. On the contrary, his face split into a wide smile, and he said in a squeaky voice that made passersby stare, "Don't be worried." Sorry, should I do voices? I don't know. "Don't be worried, my dear sir, for nothing could upset me today. Rejoice, for the you-know-ho has gone at last. Even muggles like yourself should be celebrating this happy day." Okay, I'm not gonna do voices, I'm sorry. That was really dumb. The old man hugged Mr. Dursley around the middle and walked off. Oh, so Mr. Dursley is a muggle. He's not like, he doesn't, so muggles really shouldn't be able to see these people, right? No, do voices. Okay, I'll try to remember voices. I just don't know all the people's names. So, Mr. Dursley easily stood rooted in the spot. He had been hugged by a complete stranger. He also thought he had been called a muggle. But whatever that was, he was rattled. He hurried to his car and set off for home, hoping he was imagining things, which he had never hoped for before, because he didn't approve of imagination. Is this guy like bad? Okay. This guy sucks. And his wife sucks. She stole his neck. As he pulled into the driveway of number 4, the first thing he saw, and it didn't improve his mood, was the tabby hat he'd spotted that morning. It was now sitting on his garden wall. He was sure it was the same one. It had the same markings around the eyes. "Shoo!" said Mr. Dursley loudly. The cat didn't move. It just gave him a stern look. Was this normal cat behavior? Mr. Dursley wondered. Trying to pull himself together, he let himself into the house. He was still determined not to mention anything to his wife. Mrs. Dursley had a nice normal morning. She had told him over dinner all about the Mrs. Next Door's problems with her daughter and how Dudley had learned a new word. "Won't." Mr. Dursley tried to act normal. When Dudley had been put to bed, he went into the living room in time to catch the last report of the evening news. "And finally, birdwatchers everywhere have reported that the nation's owls have been behaving very strangely today. Although owls normally hunt at night and are hardly ever seen in daylight, there have been hundreds of sightings of these birds flying in every direction since sunrise. Experts are unable to explain why the owls have suddenly changed their sleeping patterns." The newscaster allowed himself a grin. "Most mysterious. And now over to Jim McGuffin with the weather. Going to be any more showers of owl tonight, Jim?" No, I had to do Jim's voice. Shoo. That's a cat. Shoo. No, you're saying shoo. Okay. "Well, Ted, I don't know about that, but it's not only the owls that have been acting oddly today. Viewers far apart as Kent, Yorkshire, and Dundee have flooding in and telling me that instead of rain I promised yesterday, they've been downpour shooting stars. Perhaps people have been celebrating bonfire night early. It's not until next week, folks, but I can't promise what night tonight." Mr. Dursley sat frozen in his armchair. Okay, the more I read, the more accent I put into it, and I don't know what accent. Have a good night. Good night, Mr. Tease. Mr. Dursley sat frozen in his armchair. Shooting stars over Britain. Owls flying in daylight? mysterious people in cloaks all over the place. And a whisper about the Potters. Mrs. Dursley came into the living room carrying 2 cups of tea. It was no good. He'd have to say something to her. He cleared his throat nervously. Petunia dear, you haven't heard from your sister lately, have you? As he expected, Mrs. Dursley looked shocked and angry. After all, they normally pretended they didn't have a sister. No, she said sharply. Why? Funny stuff on the news, Mr. Dursley mumbled. Oh, shooting stars and... there's funny-looking people in town today. So? Snapped Mrs. Dursley. Well, I just thought maybe it was something to do with, you know, her crowd. Mrs. Dursley slipped her tea through pursed lips. Mr. Dursley wondered whether he dared tell her he'd heard the name Potter. She decided he didn't dare. Instead, he said, as casually as he could, their son, he's about Dudley's age. Now, wouldn't he be? I suppose so, said Mrs. Dursley stiffly. What's his name again? Howard, isn't it? Harry, nasty common name, if you ask me. Oh, yes, said Mr. Dursley, his heart sinking horribly. Yes, I quite agree. He didn't say another word on the subject as they went upstairs to bed. They slept in separate beds, and they never touched or hugged each other. No, just kidding, that's the part. While Mrs. Dursley was in the bathroom, Mr. Dursley crept into the bedroom window and peered down in the front garden. The cat was still there. It was staring down Privet Road, Privet Road, as though it was waiting for something. Was he imagining things? Could all this have been anything to do with the Potters? If it did, if it had gotten out that they were related to a pair of them, well, he didn't think he could bear it. The Dursleys got into bed, separate beds, 'cause they didn't love each other. Mrs. Dursley fell asleep quickly, but Mr. Dursley was laid awake, returning it all in his mind. His last comforting thought before he fell asleep was that even if the Potters were involved, there was no reason for them to come near him and Mrs. Dursley. Privet, rivet, privet. Okay, good. Gotcha. The Potters knew very well that he and Petunia thought about them, what he and Petunia thought about them and their kind. That's racist. He couldn't see how he and Petunia could get up in any of it. So he yawned and turned over. It couldn't affect them. How very wrong he was. Mr. Dursley might have been drifting into an uneasy sleep, but the cat on the wall outside was showing no sign of sleepiness. It was sitting as still as a statue, its eyes fixed unblinkingly on the far corner of Privet Road Drive. It didn't so much as quiver when a car door slammed in the next street, nor when 2 owls swooped overhead. What's going on? It's a magic cat. I think no bed's trying to handle. Are they very chubby? Okay. Oh, okay. A man appeared on the corner the cat had been watching, appeared so suddenly and silently you would have thought he just popped out of the ground. It's Harry Potter. The cat's tail twitched and its eyes narrowed. Nothing like this man had ever been seen on Privet Drive. He was tall, thin, and very old. Voldemort? Tall, thin, and very old, and judging by the silver of his hair and beard he had, which had been both very long enough to tuck into his belt, he was wearing long robes, a purple cloak that swept the ground, and high-heeled buckled boots. His eyes were blue and they were light, bright, and sparkling behind half-moon spectacles, and his nose was very long and crooked, as though it had been broken at least twice. This man's name was Albus Dumbledore. Dumbledore. It's not Harry Potter. When does Harry Potter come in the book? Is Gandalf? Albus Dumbledore didn't seem to realize that he had just arrived in the street where everything from his name to his boots were unwelcome. He was busy rummaging in his cloak, looking for something, but he didn't seem to realize he was being watched, because he looked up suddenly at this cat, which was staring at him from the other end of the street. For some reason, the sight of the cat seemed to amuse him. He chuckled and muttered, "I should have known." I think that's how he sounds like. I should have known. Okay, that's how he sounds like now. He found what he was looking for inside his inside pocket. It seemed to be a silver cigarette lighter. He flicked it open, held it up in the air, and clicked it. The nearest street lamp went out with a little pop. What? He clicked it again. The next lamp flickered to darkness. 12 times he clicked the put outer, until the only lights left in the whole street were 2 tiny pinpricks in the distance, which were the eyes of the cat watching it. Put outer. If anyone looked out their window now, even beady-eyed Mrs. Dursley wouldn't be able to see anything that was happening down on the pavement. Dumbledore slipped the put outer back into his cloak and set off down the street towards number 4. Oh no, where he sat down on the wall next to the cat. He didn't look at it, but after a moment he spoke.
"Fancy seeing you here, Professor McGonagall."
It's Magic Cat. I called it. He turned to smile at the tabby, but it was gone. Oh, never mind. Instead he was smiling at a rather severe-looking woman who was wearing square glasses, exactly the shape of the markings the cat had around her eyes. It was the lady she turned into a cat. She, too, was wearing a cloak, an emerald one. Her black hair was drawn into a tight bun. She looked distinctly ruffled. Very fancy. How did you... Oh gosh, what's her voice? How did you know it's me, she asked.
"My dear Professor, I've never seen a cat sit so stiffly."
You'd be stiff if you weren't sitting on a brick wall all day. If you'd been sitting on a brick wall all day, said Professor McGonagall.
"All day, when you could have been celebrating. I must have passed by a dozen feasts and parties on my way here."
Professor McGonagall sniffed angrily. Yes. Well, yes, everyone's celebrating all right, she said impatiently. You'd think they'd be a bit more careful, but no. Even the Muggles have noticed that something's going on. It's on their news. She jerked her head back at the Dursleys' dark living room window. I heard it. Flocks of owls shooting stars. Well, they're not completely stupid. They were bound to notice something. Shooting stars down in Kent. Oh, I bet that was Dallas Diggle. He never made much sense.
"I can't blame them," said Dumbledore gently. "We've had precious little to celebrate for 11 years.
I know that, said Professor McGonagall irritatingly, but that's not reason to lose our heads. If you are downright careless, out on the streets in broad daylight, not even dressed in Muggle clothes, swapping rumors. She threw a sharp sideways glance at Dumbledore here, as though hoping he was going to tell her something. But he didn't, so she went on. A fine thing it would be if, on the very day you know who seemed to have disappeared last night, and the Muggles found out all about us. I suppose he really has gone. Dumbledore?
It certainly seems so, said Dumbledore. We have so much to be thankful for. Would you care a lemon drop?
A what?
A lemon drop. They're a kind of muggle sweet I'm rather fond of.
They have muggle sweets and then like wizard sweets. Okay, wait, I'm curious about something. Wait. Oh, wait, what does that mean? Oh, God. What? Okay. Sorry, my nose was itchy. No, thank you, said Professor McGonagall coldly, as though she didn't think it would be a moment for lemon drops. It's always a moment for lemon drops. As I say, even if you know who has gone.
My dear Professor, surely a sensible person like yourself can't call him by his name. All this you-know-who nonsense for 11 years. I have even been trying to persuade people to call him by his proper name, Voldemort.
Oh, wait, so Voldemort died? Wait, but Voldemort's not dead, because I know he killed Harry Potter, I think. Does he kill Harry Potter? The only thing I know about this is some stuff based on memes and my time on Tumblr. They sell wizard sweets on Amazon? You do? What we should do is straight away try wizard sweets. For muggles? Someone from the wizard world is dishing them out to us muggles via Amazon. Professor McGonagall flinched, but Dumbledore, who was unsticking 2 lemon drops, seemed not to notice.
It all gets so confusing if you keep saying you-know-who. I've never seen any reason to be frightened of saying Voldemort's name.
I know you haven't, said Professor McGonagall, sounding half exasperated, half admiring. But you're different. Oh my god, are they in love? Sorry. But you're different. Everyone knows you're the only one you know who... alright, Voldemort was frightened enough. Oh, okay.
You flatter me, said Dumbledore calmly. Voldemort had powers I never have. I would never have.
Only because you're too, well, noble to use them.
It's lucky it's dark. I haven't blushed so much since Madame Pomfrey told me she liked my new earmuffs.
Kiss.
Professor McGonagall shot a sharp look at Dumbledore and said,
The owls are nothing next to the rumors that are flying around. You know what everyone's saying? About why he disappeared? About what finally stopped him?
It seemed that Professor McGonagall had reached the point she was most anxious to discuss. The real reason she had been waiting on a cold, hard wall all day. For neither a cat nor a woman had she fixed Dumbledore with such a piercing stare as she did now. It was plain that whatever everyone, quote-unquote, was saying, she was not going to believe it until Dumbledore told her it was true. Dumbledore, however, was choosing another lemon drop and did not answer. He's scarfing these down. Oh my lord.
What they're saying, she pressed on, is that the night Voldemort turned up in the Godric Howls, he wanted to find the Potters. The rumor is that Lily and James Potter are that they're dead.
Dumbledore bowed his head. Wait, why are they celebrating?
Wait, I have to sneeze. No, I don't. I lied, I did have to sneeze. Wait, why are people celebrating their deaths? That feels rather sad. I thought they killed Voldemort. Thank you for all the blushes.
my god, okay. Dumbledore bowed his head. Professor McGonagall gasped.
Wait, James, I can't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. Oh, Albus.
Dumbledore reached out and patted her on the shoulder.
I know,
he said heavily. Professor McGonagall's voice trembled as she went on.
That's not all they're saying. He tried to kill the Potter's son, Harry. But he couldn't. He couldn't kill that little boy. No one knows why or how, but they're saying that he couldn't kill Harry Potter. Voldemort's power somehow broke. And that's why he's gone. Huh? He did kill the boy. Wait. Harry Potter killed Voldemort. A baby. Dumbledore nodded glumly. It's true. It's true then, faltered Professor McGonagall. After all he's done, all the people he's killed, he couldn't kill a little boy. That's astounding. Of all the things that stopped him, but how in the names of heaven did Harry survive? We can only guess, said Dumbledore. We may never know. Professor McGonagall pulled out a lace handkerchief and dabbed her eyes beneath her spectacles. Dumbledore gave a great sniff as he took a golden watch from his pocket and examined it. It was a very odd watch. It had 12 hands but no numbers. Instead, little planets were moving around the edge. It must have made sense to Dumbledore, though, because he put it back in his pocket and said, Hagrid's slate. Wait, who's Hagrid? Hagrid's slate. I suppose it was he who told you I'd be here right away. Yes, said Professor McGonagall, and I don't suppose you're going to tell me why you're here of all places. I've come to bring Harry to his aunt and uncle. They're the only family he has now. How unfortunate. Oh my god. Only family? No magic? Only family? I doubt it. Couldn't they adopt the poor boy? Oh my god. They're gonna live with the Dursleys? Dursleys sounds sucky. Good morning, Mono. We're on page 13 of chapter 1. You don't mean... you can't mean the people that live here, cried Professor McGonagall, jumping to her feet, pointing at number 4. Dumbledore, you can't. I've been watching them all day. You couldn't find 2 people who are less like us. And they've got the son, and I saw him kicking his mother all the way up the street, screaming for sweets. Harry Potter, come and live here? It's the best place for him, said Dumbledore firmly. His aunt and uncle will be able to explain everything to him when he is older. I've written them a letter. A letter, repeated Professor McGonagall faintly, sitting back down on the wall. Really, Dumbledore, you think that you can explain all this in a letter? These people will never understand him. He'll be famous, a legend. I wouldn't be surprised if today was known as Harry Potter Day in the future. There will be books written about Harry. Every child in our world will know his name. Exactly, said Dumbledore, looking very serious over the top of his half-moon glasses. It would be enough to turn my boy's head. Famous before he can walk and talk. Famous for something he won't even remember. Can't you see how much better off he will be growing away from all that, and he's ready to take it in? Professor McGonagall opened her mouth, changed her mind, swallowed, and then said, Yes, you're right, of course, but how's this boy getting here, Dumbledore? She eyed his cloak suddenly, as though she thought he might be hiding Harry underneath it. Hagrid's bringing him. You think it wise to trust Hagrid with something as important as this? I trust Hagrid with my life, said Dumbledore. I'm not saying his heart isn't in the right place, said Professor McGonagall begrudgingly, but you can't pretend he's not careless. He does tend to. What was that? What was that? Sorry. A fucker to about here. Yeah, definitely not. A low rumbling sound had broken the silence around them. It grew steadily louder as they looked up and down the street for some sign of a headlight. It swelled to a roar as they both looked up in the sky. Flying car, and a huge motorcycle fell out of the air and landed on the road right in front of them. Oh, flying motorcycle. That feels less cool. If the motorcycle was huge, it was nothing to the man sitting astride it. He was almost twice as tall as a normal man, and at least 5 times as wide. Oh no. He looked simply too big to be allowed, and so wild. Long tangles of bushy black hair and beard hid most of his face. He had hands the size of trash can lids, and his feet in their leather boots were like baby dolphins. In his vast and muscular arms, he was holding a bundle of blankets. Oh my god, big man! Big man! Hagrid, said Dumbledore, sounding relieved. At last. And where did you get the motorcycle? Oh gosh, we need a new voice. I only have 2 voices, a very high-pitched voice and a very low-pitched voice.
Borrowed it, Professor Dumbledore, sir.
Said the giant climbing carefully off the motorcycle as he spoke.
Young Sora's black lend to me. I've got him, sir.
No problems, were there?
No, sir. House was almost destroyed, but I got him out all right before the muggles started swarming in. He fell asleep as he was flying over Bristol.
Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall bent forward over the bundle of blankets. Inside, just visible, was a baby boy, fast asleep. Under a tuft of jet black hair over his forehead, you could see a mysteriously shaped cut. A bolt of light. It's Harry Potter! Harry Potter! Is that where... whispered Professor McGonagall.
Yes. He'll have that scar forever.
Couldn't you do something about it, Dumbledore?
Even if I could, I wouldn't. Scars can come in handy. I have one above the left knee that's a perfect map of the London Underground.
We'll give him here, Hagrid. We'd better get this over with. Dumbledore took Harry in his arms and turned around to Dursley's house.
Could I say goodbye to him, sir?
Asked Hagrid. He bent his great shaggy hair over Harry and gave him what must have been a very scratchy, whiskery kiss. Then suddenly Hagrid let out a howl like a wounded dog. Howl! Shh! Hissed Professor McGonagall. You'll wake up the muggles.
Sorry, sobbed Hagrid, taking out a large spotted handkerchief and burying his face in it. But I can't stand it. Lily and James are dead. A poor little Harry off to live with muggles.
Yes, it is very sad, but get a grip on yourself, Hagrid, or we'll be found out. Professor McGonagall whispered, patting Hagrid gingerly on the arm. As Dumbledore stepped over the low garden wall and walked to the front door. Oh man, it's like seeing a train wreck. Like I know he's not gonna be happy in there. Okay. He laid Harry gently on the doorstep, took a letter out of his cloak, and tucked it inside Harry's blankets, then came out to the other 2. For a full minute, the 3 of them stood and looked at the little bundle. Hagrid's shoulders shrugged. Professor McGonagall blinked furiously, and the twinkling lights that usually shone out of Dumbledore's eyes seemed to have gone out.
Well, said Dumbledore finally. That's it. We've no business staying here. Might as well go on and join the celebrations. Yeah, said Hagrid in a muffled voice. I'll be taking Sirius. His bike is back. Good night, Professor McGonagall. Dumbledore.
Wiping his streaming eyes on his jacket sleeve, Hagrid swung himself onto the motorcycle and kicked the engine into life. With a roar, it rose into the air and off into the night.
I shall see you soon, I expect, Professor McGonagall, said Dumbledore, nodding to her.
Professor McGonagall blew her nose in reply. Dumbledore turned, walked back down the street. On the corner he stopped, took out his silver powder. He clicked it once, and then the 12 balls of light sped back to their street lights on Privet Drive glowed suddenly, and so that Privet Drive glowed suddenly orange, and he could make out a tabby cat slinking around the corner at the other end of the street. Man, that's a mouthful. He could just see the bundled blankets on the steps of number 4. No. Good luck, Harry, he murmured. He turned on his heel and switched his cloak, and he was gone. A breeze ruffled the neat hedges of Privet Drive, which lay silent and tidy under the inky sky. The very last place you would expect astonishing things to happen. Harry Potter rolled over inside his blanket without waking up. His one small hand closed on the letter beside him, and he slept on, not knowing he was special, not knowing he was famous, and not knowing he would be woken in a few hours by Mrs. Dursley's scream as she opened the front door to put out the milk bottles, nor would he spend the next few weeks being prodded and pinched by his cousin Dudley. He couldn't know that at that very moment, people were meeting in secret all over the country, and they were holding up their glasses saying in very hushed voices, "To Harry Potter, the boy who lived." How's that in chapter 1? Wait, so a few things that confuse me. Is it not legal for the wizard people to take him in? I don't know. There's gotta be some muggles they trust. I don't know. It just seems like they're bad people. I don't know. Also, what does a purple cloak mean? Cause I know, like, I thought all the colored cloaks meant like the different houses, but I don't know what the purple one means. Does that mean he's not part of a house? I liked it so far. I like the world setting, and I love the idea of like going to work and seeing everyone hushed around in purple cloaks and owls through the sky. But Dursleys are family. There's nothing stronger than family. Okay, good point. And I don't know if they can legally. You feel like the Potters that his parents would have written a will, like what they wanted to do with the son. I don't know, how like godparents? If I recall, the kids for sure have color coding. The teachers do whatever though. Oh man, that's awesome. Adults, wizards wear a variety of colors and styles. Ooh la la. To be an adult wizard. Interesting. Okay. If I could have a cloak, it'd be silver. And it'd be really long, and there would be snowfall, like, as it trails. It'd just be snow everywhere. I don't know, I feel it'd be magical. The cloak color depicts their grade, I guess. I think McGonagall has an emerald cloak due to high grade. Oh, not because it's Slytherin. Okay. We'll continue reading. Okay. Chapter 2. Let me get comfy. The vanishing glass. Oh, another question. Won't the baby be doing like weird stuff? Like what if the baby starts flying and their sleeves are like, huh? Is a flying baby? or like, are wizards not born like magic? Like, I don't know. Okay, we'll figure that out. Chapter 2: The Vanishing Glass. Nearly 10 years had passed since the Dursley had woken up to find their nephew on their front steps. But Privet Drive had hardly changed at all. The sun rose on the same tidy front gardens and lit up the brass number 4 on the Dursley's front door. It crept into their living room, which had almost exactly the same as it was on the night when Mr. Dursley had seen the faded news report about the house. Only the photographs on the mantels really showed how much time had passed. 10 years ago, there had been lots of pictures of what looked like a large pink beach ball wearing different colored bonnets. But Dudley Dursley was no longer a baby, and now the photographs show a large blonde boy riding his first bicycle on a carousel at the fair and playing his computer games with his father. Being hugged and kissed by his mother. The room held no sign at all that there was another boy that lived in the... Oh man, I knew this was a bad idea. Of another boy that lived in the house too. Yet Harry Potter was still there, asleep at the moment, but not for long. His Aunt Petunia was awake, and was on her shrill, and it was her shrill voice that made the first noise of the day. Up! Get up now!
Harry Potter woke up with a start. His aunt rapped on the door again. Up! She screamed. Harry heard her walking towards the kitchen, and then the sound of the frying pan being put on the stove. He rode onto his back and tried to remember the dream he was having. It was a good one. There had been flying motorcycles in it. Wait, does he remember? No way. He had a funny feeling he had had the same dream before. He knows. You're a Harry. You're Harry Wizard.
Yeah, that's the quote, the tagline. Everyone knows the famous line. You're a Harry Wizard.
His aunt was back at the door. Are you up yet? She demanded. Nearly, said Harry. Well, get up now. I want you to look after the bacon. Don't you dare let it burn. I want everything perfect for Dudley's birthday. Harry groaned. What did you say? His aunt snapped through the door. Nothing. Dudley's birthday. How could he have forgotten? Harry got slowly out of bed and started looking for socks. He found a pair under his bed and, after pulling a spider off one of them and put him... Ew! Harry was used to spiders because the cupboard under the stairs was full of them, and that's where he slept. Oh, I remember that. Yeah. Like he doesn't have a room. When he was dressed, he went down the hall into the kitchen. The table was almost hidden beneath all of Dudley's birthday presents. It looked as though Dudley had gotten a new computer he had wanted. Not to mention the second television and a racing bike. Oh my goodness. Holy kid. Jeez Louise. Exactly why Dudley wanted a racing bike was a mystery to Harry, as Dudley was very fat and hated exercise. the shade. And hated exercise. Unless, of course, it involved punching somebody. Dudley's favorite punching bag was Harry, and he couldn't often catch him. Harry didn't look it, but he was very fast. Perhaps it had something to do with living in a dark cupboard, but Harry had always been small and skinny for his age. He looked even smaller and skinnier than he really was because all he had to wear was old clothes of Dudley's, and Dudley was about 4 times bigger than he was. Harry had a thin face, knobby knees, black hair, and bright green eyes. He wore round glasses held together with a lot of Scotch tape because of all the times Dudley had punched him on the nose. The only thing Harry liked about his own appearance was the very thin scar on his forehead that was shaped like a lightning bolt. He had had it as long as he could remember, and the first question he ever remembered asking his Aunt Petunia was how he had gotten it. In a car crash when your parents died, she had said, and don't ask questions. Don't ask questions. That was the first rule for a very quiet life with the Dursleys. Uncle Vernon entered the kitchen as Harry... Vernon Dursley? Oh, Petunia Dursley. Okay, makes sense. Uncle Vernon entered the kitchen as Harry was turning over the bacon. "Comb your hair," he barked, by the way of a morning greeting. About once a week, Uncle Vernon looked over the top of his newspaper, shouted that Harry needed a haircut. Harry must have had more haircuts than the rest of the boys in his class put together, but it made no difference. His hair simply just grew all over the place. Harry was frying eggs by the time Dudley arrived in the kitchen with his mother. Dudley looked a lot like Uncle Vernon. He had a large pink face, not much neck, watery blue eyes, and thick blonde hair that lay smoothly on his thick fat head. Why do I have to keep calling it that? Uncle Petunia often said that Dudley looked like a baby angel. Harry often said that Dudley looked like a pig in a wig. Harry put the plate of eggs and bacon on the table, which was difficult as there wasn't much room. Dudley, meanwhile, was counting his presents. His face fell. 36, he said, looking at his mother and father. That's 2 less than I had last year. 36 presents! Petunia still doing things. Yeah. 36 presents. Oh my lord, I've never even gotten 36 presents in a whole ass year. Darling, you haven't counted on Marge's present. See, it's here under this big one from Mommy and Daddy. Alright, 37 then, said Dudley, going red in the face. Harry, who had seen a huge Dudley tantrum coming on, began wolfing down his bacon as fast as possible in case Dudley turned the tables over. Petunia obviously scented danger too, because she said quickly, and we'll buy you another 2 presents while we're out today. How's that, Pumpkins? 2 more presents. Is that alright? Dudley thought for a minute. It looked like hard work. Finally he said, so I'll have 30 nice sweetums, said Aunt Petunia. Oh, Dudley sat down heavily and gathered the nearest parcel. Alright then. Uncle Vernon chuckled. Little Tyke wants his money worth, just like his father. Attaboy, Dudley. He ruffled Dudley's hair. At the moment, the telephone rang, and Aunt Petunia went to answer it, while Harry and Uncle Vernon watched Dudley unwrap a racing bike, a video camera, a remote-control airplane, a 16 new computer games. Holy cannoli! 16 new computer games. A VCR. He was ripping the paper off a golden wristwatch when Aunt Petunia came back from the telephone, looking both angry and worried. Bad news, Vernon, she said. Mrs. Figs broke her leg. She can't take him. She jerked her head in Harry's directions. Dudley's mouth fell open in horror, but Harry's heart gave a leap. Every year on Dudley's birthday, his parents took him and a friend out for the day to adventure parks, hamburger restaurants, or to the movies. Every year, Harry was left behind with Mrs. Fig, a mad old lady who had lived 2 streets away. Harry hated it there. The whole house smelled of cabbages, and Mrs. Figgs made him look at photographs of all the cats she knows. These people really are stereotypical. Now was it? Unto Petunia, looking furiously at Harry as though he had planned this. Harry knew he ought to feel sorry that Mrs. Fig broke her leg, but it was an easy one. He reminded himself that it would be a whole year before he had to look at Tipple, Snowy, Mr. Paws, and Tufty again. We could phone Marg, Uncle Vernon suggested. Don't be silly, Vernon. She hates the boy. The Dursleys often spoke about Harry like this, as though he was in there, or rather, as though he was something very nasty that couldn't understand them, like a slug. What about, what's her name, your friend, Vonnie? I'm gonna say Vonnie. On vacation, Majoraka, snapped Aunt Petunia. Or you could just leave me here, Harry put in hopefully. He'd been able to watch what he wanted on television for a change, and maybe even have a go at Dudley's computer. And Petunia looked as though she'd swallow a whole lemon. And come back and find the house in ruins, she snarled. I won't blow up the house, said Harry, but they weren't listening. I suppose we can take him to the zoo, said Aunt Petunia. And leave him in the car? That car's new. He's not sitting in it alone. Dudley began crying loudly. In fact, he wasn't really crying. It had been a few years since he would rarely cry, but he knew that if he screwed up his face and wailed, his mother would give him anything he wanted. Dinky Duddy Dums. What? Dinky Duddy Dums? Don't cry. Mummy won't let him spoil your special day. She cried, flinging her arms around him. I don't want him to come, Dudley yelled between pretend sobs. He always spoils everything. He shot at Harry a nasty grin through the gap of his mother's arm. Just then, the doorbell rang. Oh, good Lord, they're here, said Aunt Petunia frantically. And a moment later, Dudley's best friend, Piers Pocus, walked in with his mother. Piers was a scrawny boy with a face like a rat. He was usually the one who held people's arms behind their back while Dudley hit them. Okay, at first I was like, oh man, this poor kid has to hang out with Dudley, but oh my god, this poor kid's awful. Awful. Everyone's awful. Jeez. Dudley stopped pretending to cry at once. Half an hour later, Harry, who couldn't believe his luck, was sitting in the back of Dursley's car with Piers and Dudley, on the way to the zoo for the first time in his life. Oh my god. His aunt and uncle hadn't been able to think of anything else to do with him, but before they left, Uncle Vernon had taken Harry aside. I'm warning you, he said, putting his large purple face right up to Harry's. I'm warning you now, boy. Any funny business, any at all, and you'll be in that cover from now until Christmas. I'm not gonna do anything, said Harry, honestly. But Uncle Vernon didn't believe him. No one ever did. The problem was, strange things often happened around Harry, and it was, oh, so he used magic. Okay, it happened around Harry, and it was just no good telling the Dursleys. He didn't make them happen. Once Aunt Petunia, tired of Harry coming back from the barber's looking as though he hadn't been at all, had taken a pair of kitchen scissors and cut his hair so short that he was almost bald except his bangs, which she left to, quote-unquote, hide that horrible scar. Dudley had laughed and so silly at Harry, who had spent sleepless nights imagining school the next day, where he had already laughed at for his baggy clothes and taped glasses. The next morning, however, he had gotten up to find his hair exactly as it had been before Aunt Petunia had sheared it off. He had been given a week in his cupboard for this, even though he had tried to explain that he couldn't explain how it had grown back so quickly. He's a magic boy! Magic boy! Another time, Petunia had been trying to force him into a revolting old sweater of Dudley's, brown with orange puffballs, and the harder she tried to pull it over his head, the smaller it became, until it finally, it might have been fitted a hand puppet, but certainly wouldn't fit Harry. Petunia had decided it must have shrunken in the wash, and to his great relief, Harry wasn't punished.
So, like, you don't have to say spells, you can kind of, like, will stuff? Or, like, I don't know. That's awesome. He should punch Dudley with his magic. On the other hand, he'd gotten in terrible trouble for being found on the roof of his school's kitchen. Dudley's gang had been chasing him as usual when, as much to Harry's surprise as anyone else, there he was, sitting on the chimney. The Dursleys had received a very angry letter from Harry's headmistress telling them that Harry had been climbing school buildings. But all he tried to do, as she shouted at Vernon through the locked door of his cupboard, was jump behind the big trash cans outside the kitchen doors. He supposed the wind must have caught him in a mid-jump. But today, nothing was gonna go wrong. It was even worth being with Dudley and Pierce to be spending the day somewhere that wasn't school, his cupboard, or Mrs. Figg's cabbage-smelling living room. While he drove, Uncle Vernon complained to Aunt Petunia. He liked to complain about things. People at work, Harry, the council, Harry, the bank, and Harry were just a few of his favorite subjects. This morning, it was motorcycles.
Roaring around like maniacs, the whole young hoodlums, he said as motorcycles overtook him.
I had a dream about motorcycles, said Harry, remembering suddenly. It was flying. Uncle Vernon nearly crashed his car. He turned right around in his seat and yelled at Harry, his face like a giant beet with a mustache.
Motorcycles don't fly.
Dudley and Pierce sniggered. I know they don't, said Harry. It was only a dream. But he wished he hadn't said anything. If there was one thing the Dursley hated even more than him asking questions, it was him talking about anything that acted the way it shouldn't. No matter if it was in a dream or in a cartoon, they seemed to think he might get dangerous ideas. It was a very sunny Saturday, and the zoo was crowded with families. The Dursleys bought Dudley and Pierce large chocolate ice creams at the entrance, and then, because the smiling lady in the van had asked Harry what he had wanted before they could hurry him away, they bought him a cheap lemon ice pop. It wasn't bad either, Harry thought, licking it as they watched a gorilla scratching its head, who looked remarkably like Dudley, except that it wasn't blonde. Harry had the best morning he'd had in a long time. He was careful to walk a little ways apart from the Dursley, so that Dudley and Pierce, who were starting to get bored of the animals by lunchtime, wouldn't fall back to their favorite hobby of hitting him. Oh no. Man. They ate in the zoo's restaurant, and when Dudley had a tantrum because his knickerbocker glory didn't have enough ice cream on it. What's a knickerbocker? Uncle Vernon bought him another one, and Harry was allowed to finish the first. Harry felt afterwards that he should have known it was all too good to last. After lunch, they went to the reptile house. It was cool and dark in there, and with the windows lit all along the walls. Behind the glass, all sorts of lizards and snakes were crawling, slithering over bits of woods and stone. Dudley and Pierce wanted to see the huge, poisonous cobras and thick, man-crushing pythons. Dudley quickly found the largest snake in the place. It could have wrapped his body twice until... Let me take this out. Could have wrapped its body twice around Uncle Vernon's car and crushed it into a trash can, but at the moment it didn't look like it was in the mood. In fact, it was fast asleep.
Like B. Snake Sara? Yeah, Sara's in this book. She's magical. Dudley stood with his nose pressed against glass, staring at the glistening brown coils. Make it move, he whined to his father. Uncle Vernon tapped on the glass, but the snake didn't budge. Do it again, Dudley ordered. Uncle Vernon rapped the glass smartly with his knuckles. The snake just snoozed on. This is boring, Dudley moaned. He shuffled away. Harry moved in front of the tank and looked intently at the snake. He wouldn't have been surprised if it had died of boredom itself. No company except stupid people drumming their fingers on the glass, trying to disturb it all day long. It was worse than having a cupboard as a bedroom, where the only visitor was Aunt Petunia hammering on the door to wake you up. At least he got to visit the rest of the house. Aww, poor snake. Poor, Sara. The snake slowly opened its beady eyes. Slowly, very slowly, it raised its head until its eyes were on level of Harry's. It winked. It winked? Harry stared. Then he looked quickly around to see if anyone else was watching. They weren't. He looked back at the snake and winked too. The snake jerked its head towards Uncle Vernon and Dudley, then raised its eyes to the ceiling. It gave Harry a look that said quite plainly, I get that all the time. Is it magic, snake? I know, Harry mumbled through the glass, though he wasn't sure the snake could hear him. It must be really annoying. The snake nodded vigorously. Wait, he can speak, snake? Where do you come from anyways? Harry asked. The snake dropped its tail at a little sign next to the glass. It's like, read this, you dummy. Harry peered at it. Boa constrictor, Brazil. Oh, was it nice there? The boa constrictor dropped its tail at the sign, and Harry read on. This specimen was bred in the zoo. Oh, I see. So you've never been to Brazil? As the snake shook its head, a deafening shout behind Harry made them both jump. Dudley! Mr. Dursley! Come, look at the snake! You won't believe what it's doing! Dudley came waddling towards them as fast as he could. Out of the way, you! He said, punching Harry in the ribs. Caught by surprise, Harry fell hard on the concrete. What came next happened so fast that no one saw how it happened. 1 second, Piers and Dudley were leaning right up close to the glass. The next, they had leapt back with howls of horror. Harry sat up and gasped. The glass in front of the boa constrictor's tank had vanished. The grey snake was uncoiling itself rapidly, slithering out onto the floor. People throughout the reptile house screamed and started running for the exits. Holy cannoli. As the snake slid swiftly past him, Harry could have sworn a low hissing Sorry, I just read ahead. Harry could have sworn a low hissing voice said, Brazil, here I comes. Thanks, amigo. The keeper of the reptile house was in shock. But the glass, he kept saying, where did the glass go? Did Sarapon swim from the London? Yeah, like, does the snake even know which way Brazil is? The zookeeper directed himself to Aunt Petunia, a cup of strong sweet tea while he apologized over and over again. Piers and Dudley could only gibber as far as what's gibber? Define gibber. Unintelligible and meaningless speech or writing nonsense. Oh, it's like, oh, is it pronounced gibber?
Gibber.
Gibber, like gibberish. Speaking rapidly or unintelligibly, typically through fear. Gibber. Okay, that could only gibber.
As far as Harry had seen, the snake hadn't done anything except snap playfully at their heels as it passed. But by the time they were all back at Aunt Vernon's car, Dudley was telling them how it had nearly bitten off his legs, while Pierce was swearing that it had tried to squeeze him to death. But worst of all, for Harry at least, it was Pierce calming down enough to say, "Harry was talking to it, weren't you, Harry?" Aunt Vernon waited until Pierce was safely out of the house before starting on Harry. He was so angry he could hardly speak. He managed to say, "Go, cupboard, stay, no mules," before he collapsed into a chair, and Aunt Petunia had to run and get him a large brandy. Dang. Voldemort, oh my voted these nuts. That's so dumb. Harry lay in his dark cupboard much later, wishing he had a watch. He didn't know what time it was, and he wasn't sure the Dursleys were asleep yet. Until they were, he couldn't risk sneaking to the kitchen to get some food. Aw. He lived with the Dursleys for almost 10 years. 10 miserable years, as long as he could remember. And ever since he had been a baby, his parents had died in a car crash. He couldn't remember being in the car when his parents had died. Sometimes when he strained his memory during long hours in his cupboard, he came up with strange visions. A blinding flash of green light, a burning pain on his forehead. This, he was supposed, was the crash, though he couldn't imagine where all the green light came from. It was Voldemort. And he couldn't remember his parents at all. His aunt and uncle never spoke about them, and of course he was forbidden to ask questions. There were no photographs of them in the house. When he had been younger, Harry had dreamed of some unknown relation coming to take him away, but it had never happened. The Dursleys were his only family. Yet sometimes he thought, or maybe he just hoped, that strangers in the street seemed to know him. Very strange strangers that they were too. Tiny man in a violet top hat had bowed to him once while they were shopping with Aunt Petunia and Dudley. After asking Harry furiously if he knew the man, Aunt Petunia had rushed him out of the shop without buying anything. And then, one time, a wild-looking old woman dressed in all green was waving merrily at him once on the bus. A bald man in a very long purple coat had actually shaken his hand on the street the other day and then walked away without a word. The weirdest things about all these people was the way they seemed to vanish the second Harry tried to get a closer look. At school, Harry had no one. Everybody knew the Dudleys gang hated that old Harry Potter and his baggy clothes and broken glasses, and so no one liked to disagree with the Dudley gang. Aww. And that was the end of chapter 2.
Man, that's so mean. I wish they weren't so mean to him. Oh, I think I'll read one more chapter. We'll see how far this gets us. Oh yeah, it's doable. It's doable. Let me get a bookmark. Alright. I really hope, I was like really hoping that the snake would just kill them. And he would just run away with the snake to Brazil. And to Brazil, I know. Thank you, amigo. Okay. I'm glad you guys are enjoying it. It makes me happy. I've never had a chance to like actually read the whole series, so I feel like could be fun. Could be fun. That'd be quite a different story. It'd be my story. Okay. Chapter 3. The Letters from No One. Da da da. The escape of the Brazilian boa constrictor earned Harry his longest ever punishment. By the time he was allowed out of his cupboard again, the summer holiday had started, and Dudley had already broken his new video camera, crashed his new remote control airplane, and, first time out on his racing bike, knocked down old Mrs.
figs as she was crossing Privet Drive on her crushes. What an eventful summer. Harry was glad school was over, but there was no escaping Dudley's game. They visited the house every single day. Pierce, Dennis, Malcolm, Gordon were all big and all stupid, but as Dudley was the biggest and stupidest of the lot, he was the leader. The rest of them were all quite happy to join in on Dudley's favorite sport, Harry hunting. This was why Harry spent as much time as possible out of the house, wandering around and thinking about the end of the holidays, where he could see a tiny ray of hope. When summer came, he would be off to secondary school, and for the first time in his life, he wouldn't be with Dudley. What's secondary school? Is that like, middle school? Or like high school? Dudley had been accepted as Uncle Vernon's old private school, Schmeltings. That sounds like a lame school. I wouldn't want to say I go to Schmeltings. Pierce Bocus was going there too. Harry, on the other hand, was going to Stonewall High, a local public school. Dudley thought it was very funny. They stuffed people's head down the toilet the first day at Stonewall, he told Harry. Want to come upstairs and practice? No thanks, said Harry. The poor toilets never had anything as horrible as your head down it. It might be sick. and then he ran before Dudley could work out what he said. Midwife Dudley. Okay, sounds good. Sometimes some of these insults feel like they've been written by Harry Potter himself, and they're just using a pseudonym. One day in July, Petunia took Dudley to London to buy his Schmeltings uniform, leaving Harry at Mrs. Figg's. Oh no, Mrs. Figg's wasn't as bad as usual. It turned out she'd broken her leg tripping over one of her cats, and she didn't seem quite as fond of them as she did before. Oh Lord. She let Harry watch television and gave him a bit of chocolate cake that tasted as though she had had it for several years. That evening, Dudley paraded around the living room for the family in his brand new uniform. Smeltings boy wore maroon tailcoats, orange knickerbockers, and flat straw hats called boaters. They also carried knobbly sticks used for hitting each other while the teacher wasn't looking. This was supposed to be good training for later life. This can't be real. This can't be real. As he looked at Dudley in his new knickerbockers, Uncle Vernon said gruffly that it was the proudest moment of his life. Uncle Petunia burst into tears and said she couldn't believe that it was her little Ickly Doodlykins. He looked so handsome and grown up. Harry didn't trust himself to speak. He thought two of his ribs might already have cracked from trying not to laugh. There was a horrible smell in the kitchen the next morning when Harry went in for breakfast. It seemed to be coming from a large metal tub in the sink. He went to have a look. The tub was filled with what looked like dirty rags swimming in great water. "What's this?" he asked Aunt Petunia. Her lips tightened as they always did when he dared ask a question. "Your new school uniforms," she said. Harry looked into the bowl again. "Oh," he said. I didn't realize it had to be so wet." "Don't be stupid," snapped Aunt Petunia. "I'm dyeing some of Dudley's old things gray for you. It'll look like everyone else's when I'm finished." Harry seriously doubted this, but thought it best not to argue. He sat down at the table and tried not to think about how he was going to look on his first day at Stonewall High. Like he was wearing old bits of elephant skin, probably. Dudley and Uncle Vernon came in, both with wrinkled noses because of the smell of Harry's new uniform. Uncle Vernon opened his newspaper as usual, and Dudley banged his smelting stick, smelting stick, which he carried everywhere on the table. They heard the click of a mail slot and flop of letters on the doormat. "Get the mail, Dudley," said Uncle Vernon from behind his paper. "Make Harry get it." "Get the mail, Harry." "Make Dudley get it." "Poke him with your smelting stick, Dudley." Dudley dodged the smelting stick and went to get the mail. 3 things laid on a doormat. A postcard from Uncle Vernon's sister Marge, who was vacationing in the Isles of Wight, a brown envelope that looked like a bill, and a letter for Harry. He picked it up, stared at it. His heart twanged like a giant elastic band. No one ever in his whole life had written to him. Who would? He had no friends, no other relatives, and he didn't belong to the library, so he never got any rude notes asking for the book back. Yet here it was, a letter, addressed so plainly that there could be no mistake. Mr. H. Potter, the cupboard under the stairs. 4 Privet Drive, Little Wingy, Surrey. Why did they address it to the cupboard under the stairs? The envelope was thick and heavy, made of yellowish parchment, and the address was written in emerald green ink. There was no stamp. Turning the envelope over, his hand trembled. Harry saw a purple wax seal bearing the coat of arms. A lion, an eagle, a badger, and a snake surrounding the letter H. For Harry. "Hurry up, boy!" shouted Uncle Vernon from the kitchen. "What are you doing, checking the letter for letter bombs?" He chuckled at his own joke. Harry went back to the kitchen, still staring at his letter. He handed Uncle Vernon the bill, the postcard, sat down, and slowly began opening the yellow envelope. Uncle Vernon ripped open the bill, snorted in disgust, and flipped over the postcard. Sorry, I'm having... There's the one of these pages is bent, and I feel bad, so I want to unbend it. Okay. Marge is ill, he informed Uncle Petunia. Ate a funny milk. "Dad," said Dudley suddenly. "Dad, Harry's got something." Harry was at a point of unfolding his letter, which was written in the very same parchment as the envelope, when it was jerked sharply out of his hand by Uncle Vernon. "That's mine!" Oh wait, sorry, wrong voice. "That's mine," said Harry, trying to snatch it back. "Who'd be writing to you?" sneered Uncle Vernon, shaking the letter open with one hand and glancing at it. His face went from red to green faster than a set of traffic lights. And it hadn't stopped there. Within seconds, it was a grayish white of old porridge. Petunia, he gasped. Dudley tried to grab the letter and read it, but Uncle Vernon held it high out of his reach. Uncle Petunia took it carelessly and read the first line. For a moment, it looked as though she might faint. She clutched her throat and made a choking noise. "Vernon! Oh my goodness, Vernon!" They stared at each other, seemingly half forgotten that Harry and Dudley were still in the room. Dudley wasn't used to being ignored. He gave his father a sharp tap on the head with his smelting stick. "I want to read that letter," he said loudly. "I want to read it," Harry said furiously. "It's mine." "Get out, both of you," croaked Uncle Vernon, stuffing the letter back into the envelope. Harry didn't move. "I want my letters," he shouted. "Let me see it," said Dudley. "Out!" roared Uncle Vernon, as he took both Harry and Dudley by the scruffs of their neck and threw them into the hall, slamming the kitchen door behind them. Harry and Dudley promptly had a furious but silent fight over who would listen at the keyhole. Dudley won, so Harry, his glasses dangling from one ear, lay flat on his stomach to listen to the crack between the door and the floor. "Vernon, Petunia said in a quivering voice. Look at this address. How could they possibly know where he sleeps? You don't think they're watching the house? Watching, spying, might be following us, muttered Uncle Vernon wildly. Oh, but what do we do, Vernon? Should we write back? Tell them that we don't want... Harry could see Uncle Vernon's shiny black shoes pacing up and down the kitchen. No, he said firmly. No, we'll ignore it. If they don't want to get an answer, yes, that's best. We won't do anything. But I'm not having one in this house, Petunia. Didn't we swear when we took him in that we'd stamp out the dangerous nonsense? That evening, when he got back from work, Uncle Vernon did something he'd never done before. He visited Harry in his cupboard. Where's my letter? Said Harry the moment Uncle Vernon squeezed through the door. Who's writing to me? No one. It was addressed to you by mistake, said Uncle Vernon shortly. I burnt it. It was not a mistake, said Harry angrily. It had my cupboard on it. Silence, said Uncle Vernon, and a couple of spiders fell from the ceilings. Ah! Gross. He took a few deep breaths and then forced his face into a smile, which looked quite painful. Yes, here, Harry, about this cupboard. Your aunt and I have been thinking... You're getting a bit big for it. We might think it'd be nice if you moved into Dudley's second bedroom. Dudley's two bedrooms. Why? Said Harry. Don't ask questions, snapped Uncle. Take the stuff upstairs now. The Dursleys' house had 4 bedrooms. One for Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia, one for visitors, usually Uncle Vernon's sister Marge, and one where Dudley slept, and one where Dudley kept all his toys and things that wouldn't fit into his first bedroom. It only took Harry 1 trip upstairs to move everything he'd owned from the cupboard to this room. He sat down on the bed, stared around him. Nearly everything there was broken. A month-old video camera lying on top of the small working tank Dudley had once driven over to the next-door neighbor's dogs. In the corner was Dudley's first-ever television set, which he put his foot through when his favorite program had been cancelled. And there was even a large bookcase, which had once held a pair that Dudley had swapped at school for a real air rifle, which was up on the shelf at the end with the end all bent because Dudley had sat on it. You can't swap a bird at school. That's weird. Brad has 2 bedrooms, right? Right? Other shelves were full of books. They were the only things in the room that looked as though they'd never been touched. From downstairs came the sound of Dudley bawling at his mother. I don't want him there. I need that room. Make him get out. Harry sighed, stretched out on the bed. Yesterday he'd have given anything to be up here. Today he'd rather be back in his cupboard with the letter than be up here without it. Next morning at breakfast, everything was rather quiet. Dudley was in shock. He screamed, whacked his father with smelting sticks, been sick on purpose, kicked his mother, and thrown his tortoise through the greenhouse roof, and he still hadn't had his room back. Harry was thinking about this time yesterday, and bitterly wishing he'd opened the letter in the hall. Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia looked at each other darkly. When the mail arrived, Uncle Vernon, who had seemed to be trying to be nice to Harry, made Dudley go get it, and they heard him bang things with his smelting stick all the way down the hall. Then he shouted, "There's another one! Mr. H. Harry Potter, the smallest bedroom! The smallest bedroom!" It changed! 4 Privet Drive. With a strangled cry, Uncle Vernon leaped from his chair and ran down the hall. Harry right behind him. Uncle Vernon had to wrestle Dudley to the ground to get the letter from him, which was made it difficult by the fact that Harry had grabbed Uncle Vernon around the neck from behind. Dang, you try and get beat up. After a moment of confused fighting, in which everyone had gotten hit by a lot of smelting stick, Uncle Vernon straightened up. gasped for air with Harry's letter clutched in his hands. Go to your cupboard. Bedroom, he wheezed at Harry. Dudley, go. Just go. Harry walked around and around his new room. Someone knew he'd moved out of his cupboard, and they seemed to know he hadn't received his first letter. Surely that meant they tried again, and this time he'd make sure they didn't fail. He had a plan. Go, Harry! Go, Harry Potter! Get your letter. The repaired alarm clock ran at 6 o'clock the next morning. Harry turned it off quickly and dressed silently. He mustn't wake up the Dursleys. He stole downstairs without turning on any of the lights. He was gonna wait for the postman on the corner of Privet Drive and get the letters for number 4 first. His heart hammered as he crept across the dark hall towards the front door. Arrgh! Harry leapt into air. He dropped it onto something big and squashy on the doormat. Something alive. Lights clicked up upstairs, and into Harry's horror, Harry realized that the big squashy something that had been his uncle's face. Uncle Vernon had been lying on the foot of the front door in a sleeping bag, clearly making sure Harry didn't do exactly what he'd been trying to do. He shouted at Harry for about half an hour and then told him to go and make a cup of tea. Harry shuffled miserably off into the kitchen, and by the time he got back, the mail had arrived. Dang! Right on Uncle Vernon's lap. Harry could see 3 letters addressed in green ink. I want, he began, but Uncle Vernon was tearing the letter into pieces before his eyes. Oh man, they really... Dang, I'm so... Don't the letters usually come by owls? Like, just get this man an owl. Like, he lives on the bedroom. It probably has a window. I don't know how these things work. Uncle Vernon didn't go to work that day. He stayed home and nailed up the mail slot. See, he explained to Aunt Petunia with a mouthful of nails. If they can't deliver them, they'll just give up. I'm not sure that'll work, Vernon. Oh, these people's minds work in strange ways, Petunia. They're not like you or me, said Uncle Vernon, trying to knock in a nail with a piece of fruitcake Aunt Petunia had just brought him. On Friday, no less than 12 letters arrived for Harry. As they couldn't go through the mail slot, they got pushed under the door, slotted through the sides, and a few even forced through the small window in the downstairs bathroom. Uncle Vernon stayed at home again. After burning all the letters, he got out a hammer and nailed boards of the cracks around the front and the back doors so no one could go out. He hummed Tiptoe Through the Tulips as he worked and jumped at small noises. On Saturday, things began to get out of hand. 24 letters found Harry, rolled up and hidden inside each... 24 letters to Harry found their way inside the house, rolled up and hidden inside each of the 24 eggs that their very confused milkman had handed Aunt Petunia through the living room window. While Uncle Vernon made a furious telephone call to the post office and the dairy trying to find someone to complain to, Aunt Petunia shredded the letters in her fruit processor. Who on earth wants to talk to you this badly? Dudley asked Harry in amazement. On Sunday morning, Uncle Vernon sat down at the breakfast table looking tired, rather ill, but happy. No post on Sundays, he reminded them cheerfully as he spread marmalade on his newspapers. No damn letters today. Something came whizzing down the kitchen chimney as he spoke and caught him sharply on the back of the head. Next moment, 30 or 40 letters came pounding out of the fireplace like bullets. The Dursley ducked, but Harry leaped into the air, trying to catch one. Out! Out! Uncle Vernon seized Harry around the waist, threw him into the hall. When Aunt Petunia and Dudley had run out with their arms over their faces, Uncle Vernon slammed the door shut. They could hear the ladder still streaming into the room, bouncing off the walls and floors. Oh my god, so close.
Yeah, I think all the letters broke his brain a bit. That's why he was spreading jam on his marmalade on his newspaper, and he was nailing nails with fruitcake. Broke his brain. That does it, said Uncle Vernon, trying to speak calmly, but pulling great tufts out of his mustache at the same time. I want you all back here in 5 minutes, ready to leave. We're going away. Just pack some clothes, no arguments. He looked so dangerous with half his mustache fishing that no one dared to argue. 10 minutes later, they all had wrenched their way through the boarded-up doors and were in the car, speeding towards the highway. Dudley was sniffing on the back seat. His dad had hit him round the head for holding him up while trying to pack his television, VCR, and computer in his sports bag. They drove, and even Petunia didn't dare to ask where they were going. Every now and then, Uncle Vernon would take a sharp turn and drive in the opposite direction for a while. Forgetting his nuts was dry enough. So gross. Oh my god. Like, is he scared? Like, why doesn't... Okay, see? Like, okay, I think I know where the letters are going. Like, they're like, hey Harry, come to the school. But won't they want him to go to the school? Because then they don't have to take care of him. I don't know, it feels like a win-win. Okay. Shake him off, shake it off, he would mother whenever he did this. They didn't stop to eat or drink all day. By nightfall, Dudley was howling. He had never had such a bad day in his life. He was hungry, and he had missed 5 television programs he'd wanted to see. And he'd never gone so long without blowing up an alien on his computer. Uncle Vernon stopped at last outside a gloomy-looking hotel on the outskirts of the big city. Apparently, they just hate wizards. They don't know what the letter's about, and they don't want anything to do with them. Yeah, it didn't seem like they read past the first line of the letter, so it's probably like, "Hi, I'm a wizard." Probably. Okay, Dudley and Harry shared a room with twin beds and a damp, musty sheets. Dudley snored, but Harry stayed awake, sitting at the window sill, staring down at the lights of passing cars and wondering. They ate stale cornflakes and cold tinned tomatoes on toast for breakfast the next day. They had just finished when the owner of the hotel came over to their table. "Excuse me, but is one of you Mr. H. Potter? I got about 100 of these at the front desk." Oh, it's a girl. She held up a letter so they could read the green ink address. "Mr. H. Potter, room 17, Railview Hotel, Coaksworth." Harry made a grab for the letter, but Uncle Vernon knocked his hand out of the way. The woman stared. "I'll take them," said Uncle Vernon, standing up quickly and following her to the dining room. "Wouldn't it be better just to go home, dear?" Aunt Petunia suggested timidly. And hours later, but Uncle Vernon didn't seem to hear her. Exactly what he was looking for, none of them knew. He drove them in the middle of a forest, got out, looked around, shook his head, got back into the car, and went off again. The same thing happened in the middle of the plowed field, halfway across the suspension field, and at the top of the multi-level parking garage. Is he trying to find places to camp out where they can't send you mail? It's on top of a parking garage in the middle of a bridge, I guess. Oh my goodness. "Dad's gone mad, hasn't he?" Dudley asked Aunt Petunia dully late the afternoon. Uncle Vernon had parked at the coast, locked them all inside the car, and disappeared. It started to rain. Great drops beat on the floor on the roof of the car. Dudley sniveled. "It's Monday," he told his mother. The
Humberto's on tonight, and I want to say somewhere with a television.
Monday. That reminded Harry something. If it was Monday, and you could use your account on Dudley to know the days of the week, because television.
And tomorrow, Tuesday, was Harry's 11th birthday. Of course his birthday were never exactly fun. Last year, the Dursley had given him a coat hanger and a pair of Uncle Vernon's old socks. Still, you weren't 11 every day. Uncle Vernon was back and he was smiling. He was also carrying a long, thin package and didn't answer Aunt Petunia when she asked what he bought. "Found the perfect place," he said. "Come on, everybody out." It was very cold outside the car. Uncle Vernon was pointing at what looked like a very large rock out at sea. Perched on top of the rock was the most miserable little shack you could ever imagine. One thing was certain. There was no television there. "Storm forecast for tonight," said Uncle Vernon gleefully, clapping his hands together. "And this gentleman kindly agreed to lend us his boat." A toothless old man came ambling up to them, pointing with a rather wicked grin at an old rowboat bobbing in the iron-gray water below them. I've already got us some rations," said Uncle Vernon, "so all aboard." It was freezing in the boat. Icy sea spray and rain crept down their necks, and a chilly wind whipped their faces. After what seemed like hours, they reached the rock, where Uncle Vernon, slipping and sliding, led the way to the broken-down house. Wow, they're really trying really hard. Yeah. If only they put this, even a quarter of this much, into raising Harry. Jeez Louise. The inside was horrible. It smelled strongly of seaweed. A wind whistled through the gaps of the wooden floor, and the fireplace was damp and empty. There were only 2 rooms. Uncle Vernon rationed turns out to be a bag of chips each and 4 bananas. He tried to start a fire, but the empty chip bags just smoked and shriveled up. "Could do with some of those letters now, eh?" he said cheerfully. He was in a very good mood. Obviously, he thought nobody stood a chance of reaching them here in a storm to deliver mail. Harry privately agreed, though the thought didn't cheer him up at all. As night fell, the promised storm blew up around them. Spray from the high waves splattered the walls of the hut, and a fierce wind rattled the filthy windows. Aunt Petunia found a few moldy blankets in the second room and made a bed for Dudley on the moth-eaten sofa. She and Uncle Vernon went off to the lumpy bed next door, and Harry was left to find the softest bit of floor he could and to curl up under the thinnest, most ragged blanket. Aww. Where are we in the story? We're on chapter 3 right now. He's getting a lot of letters, so they moved to a cabin on a really large rock in the middle of the ocean. I don't know what's going on. The storm raged more and more ferociously as the night went on. Harry couldn't sleep. He shriveled and turned over, trying to get uncomfortable, but his stomach rumbled with hunger. Dudley's snores were drowned by the low rolls of the thunder that started near midnight. The lighted dial of Dudley's watch. You know, I keep thinking they're like in the days when they don't have electricity. Like the timeline of this is confusing in my head. And I'm imagining like really old stuff. Where was I? Okay, the lighted dial of Dudley's watch, which was dangling over the edge of the sofa on his fat wrist, told Harry he'd been 11 in 10 minutes' time. He lay and waited his birthday tick nearer, wondering if the Dursley would remember at all, wondering where the letter writer was now. 5 minutes to go. Harry heard a creak outside. He hoped the roof wasn't going to fall in, although he might be warmer if it did. 4 minutes to go. Maybe the house in Privet Drive would be full of letters when they got back, and he'd be able to steal one somehow. 3 minutes to go. Was
that the sea slapping hard on the rock like that? 2 minutes ago. What was that funny crunching sound? Was the rock crumbling into the ocean? 1 minute ago, and he'd be 11. 30 seconds. 20. 10. 9. Maybe he'd wake Dudley up just to annoy him. 3, 2, 1. Boom! The whole shack shivered, and Harry sat bolt upright, staring at the door. Someone was outside, knocking to come in. Oh, and that was the end of the chapter. Wow. Man, what a cliffhanger. Dang, I want to keep reading, but I don't know. Wait, where's the next chapter? Chapter 5, chapter 4.
Well, I'll do another few bits. Okay, we'll just end there then. Feels like a good place to end. I'll put my bookmark there. We got through 3 chapters, I think. Yeah, we got through 3 chapters. I really liked reading with you guys. Yeah, I hope whoever comes gives him his letter and it's like, I've been writing you literally hundreds of letters. Why won't you open them? It's pretty scary. Okay. Well, we'll read that next time when I can brace for the scariness. You guys like this story? Have you guys ever read the whole series? I saw some people who said they watched the movie before. Well, maybe we'll do a watch along where I can watch the movie after the book. And then I can be like, oh my god, that's a lady. I keep saying I'll do watch alongs, but I don't know how like entertaining it'd be. Just me sitting here and be like, haha, nice. I don't know. I liked it. Nice. I'm glad. I'm gonna take a little bit of a break. Because there's a stream later in the day at like 11ish. How many hours? 8, 9, 10, 11. So in like 2.5 hours, we're just gonna be playing some Minecraft. I read the localized version for 1 to 3 and then the English version for 4 to 7. Oh, what's different about the localized version? Have you been like, oh, that's not in the book? I don't know. I hope he gets his letter, and I hope he gets to actually go to Hogwarts, cause, I mean, I know it's bound to happen. Imagine if he just never got the letter, and it was just like, it's boring. He just still lives in the shack. Maybe. I want to always back in Minecraft. Hey, I only streamed Minecraft 1 time this week. It's barely, you could barely call that addiction. That's like, that's like, I don't know. Localized translate into native language. I really want to have gone past this. Oh, makes sense. I wonder if they changed stuff so it made more sense to people of like different cultures. Because I know sometimes people like when like how they call like onigiri, they're like, man, Brock made these jelly-filled donuts. And it's obviously not donuts. Do you have the British version or the localized American? I think it's the American version because it's from the Scholastic Book Fair, and I don't think there's Scholastic Book Fairs outside of the U.S. It's a very fun childhood thing. But how many times do you play Minecraft off stream? Not a lot. Honestly, I just want to clean up my thing. I don't want to accidentally do something and be like, oh man, I wish I was streaming for that. You know. Maybe I've been thinking about we could play some like on a Minecraft server, like a Hypixel server, and we could play mini games together. But I don't know if people have Minecraft and like want to join, because I think it'd be fun to play like Bed Wars or Prop Hunt. Like I've seen
like Minecraft pop prompt. That would be fun. Or whatever games there are. I'm really bad at words, but it's so fun. Like, I guess I'm competitive for no reason. That would be fun. Yeah, maybe we'll do that today. Like after a bit of like server stuff, it'll be like I'll go on Hypixel. What's a good server for me to look into? There's only one I know is Hypixel. It's like the really big one. What if we did the bedrock cannons, whatever, and like you have to claim your chunks and you have to steal stuff from other people? What if we did that? That would be fun. And we all like started like our own guild together on the server. Or maybe it'd be bad, because then I would stream it and someone would see it and they'd be like, oh, I know where her base is, and they'd find my base. I don't know. I can see upsides and downsides to it. Is there even an American English? I'm not an idiot, but this feels strange. Well, the price on here is in USD, so I'm gonna think it is the American English. No stream snipe. I know, I've been stream snipe before. It's not fun. It makes it makes the whole game less enjoyable. Which versions would we can cross out? Oh yeah, on servers you can. Like, it's compatible throughout. I know like Hypixel is still like people purposely dumb it down to like 1.16, so when they do bed wars they can like swing really fast instead of like waiting for the bar to fill up. I don't know. Someone told me that. I was like, that feels so sweaty. I hope someone translated the entirety of Harry Potter into Australian thing. I would love to see that. We may check that. That's got to exist. Give me a second. Harry Potter Australian slang? Oh, there's fan fictions of writing prompt. Harry Potter is now based in Australia. All spells are based on Australian slang. Hogwarts is cockadoo. Dragons are drop bears, and Voldemort is a Harry opened the box with glee. It had been sent from his uncle Brett back. Ron and Sheila gasped as he withdrew the constant. "Struth, mate. Do you know what that is?" Ron said. "Of course do, you fleming drongo. It's a didgeridoo." "It's not any old didgeridoo, mate. That's a Tessie devil. We are sure to be Slytherin during the final Quidditch match now." Harry mounted the didgeridoo and took off. And it keeps going. Okay. Well, that's. I'll paste it in the as a pinned comment. Oh, I've decided in the chat. That's lame. Oh gosh, I'm ruining everything. How do I paste? I don't know. Give me a second. I don't know. There we go. I pasted it. Pin. Didgeridoo is an indigenous native instrument. That's like a really... Yeah, I've seen people play the didgeridoo before. It's quite funny. Yeah, thanks for joining me and watching me read a bit. I hope you have fun. It's been a bit since I read, like, for fun, you know? Can't figure out a stream, but I'm so tired. Found the button. Okay. Oyasumi. I hope you had a good night. Or good morning. I'll see you in a bit if you'd like to join for Minecraft. We might play some mini games other than PRISM stuff. Yeah, bye bye. Okay, good night. I'm gonna go lay down and I don't know, watch TikTok.